Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Foundations. I am Shannon Acosta, a financial advisor and CFP here at Benchmark.
I'm Elian Levatino, also a financial advisor and CFP at Benchmark.
This month we're tackling budgeting.
Yep.
We've got two questions today.
Budgeting questions.
A lot of them. So hopefully you can check out the ones preceding this one, and I think we have one more in the month of March that will cover another couple of questions. Two questions on the docket today. The first one is, how do I budget for irregular expenses? Irregular expenses, well, we'll get into what they are in a minute, but this is one of those concepts that's not difficult, but it's not easy. It requires some legwork and some labor, but it's simple, and I'll walk you through how to do that. First, you'll need to define all of your expenses that aren't paid on a monthly budget. An example, a handful of examples could be vet checkups for pets, insurance premiums if you don't pay them monthly, vacations that you're saving up for, haircuts, auto repair and maintenance. You get the idea. It might be helpful to actually pull a few months worth of credit card or bank statements and highlight ones that aren't regular. And it's, again, a lot of work, but ultimately it'll help provide a lot of peace of mind within your budget. Once you've made a list, figure out how much each of the things cost. Define how much you would need to set aside for each of those expenses. To do that, we got to do some math. You got to figure out how much time lapses in between each of those expenses. And then you have to figure out how much on average would you need to save each month to be prepared for that expense when it arrives. It's kind of complicated to verbalize, so I'll give a couple of examples. My favorite child is my dog. His name is Rue. And he's a senior citizen, so he has to go to the vet twice a year. It's about $200 every time we go, I think. So when we're budgeting for his vet bills, that's irregular. It doesn't happen every month, but it's still expensive, so we want to plan for it. If we take him twice a year and it's $200 each time, that's $400 a year. If I divide that by 12 months, I had to budget $33 a month in order to make sure that we've accounted for his special needs as he's getting up there.
Well, and with that example, let me ask a different question. It could be $200, but is it always $200? Or when he goes, is there some ancillary stuff that comes along with it and they have to do some extra care and maybe it ends up being $300 or $400?
It can depend.
What just happened to my budget?
It can depend, and that's why we do usually take the extra time to reflect back whenever we do this in our own budget. Sometimes it's not 200 and it kind of levels out, but you know, if we notice that price tag steadily going up because we're suckers and we love him and he's expensive, then we're going to want to account for that and adjust it. That's a great question. Another example is auto repair and maintenance. You know, we've got 2 cars in our family. We need to get the oil changed every 3 to 4 months, and it costs about $60 every time we do. That is $360 per year that we're spending in oil changes, $30 a month. So again, it's not something that we're spending every month, but we know how much it costs. Those irregular expenses automatically go into a separate savings account in our bank. So whenever we swipe a card or pay for something that falls under those categories, and we list them and we define them, and my husband and I talk about them, we use that specific card and take it from that specific budget. And like Elian said, with the varying vet bills, you know, sometimes we over and we have to pull from a different bucket of savings, and that tells us that we need to tweak what next year's budget is going to look like. Sometimes we have a surplus left over and we get to decide what we're going to do with it. Would you add anything?
Well, the reason I was picking on you about that is because it was leading into one of the questions that they were asking me. Was that all your points?
Oh, I'm done. You go. Yeah.
Well, no. So a bit of a segue is, you know, budgets don't, you know, nobody's, raise your hand if you're perfect. No, not you, put your hand down. No, we're all going to mess this up, and trying to find a lot of grace for yourself, especially if you're a perfectionist and this budget doesn't work out. People tend to be a little bit hard on themselves. So look for some grace. The old saying is about progress and not perfection, but eventually we want to really nail this down and get really close to zero. But the reality is that expenses fluctuate, and you might have planned for a $200 vet bill, but it ended up being $250, and you are. Now you're taking $50 from someplace else trying to make your budget work. And sometimes that's a little frustrating. It's okay.
Because at least we accounted for that $200 portion.
Right.
We could have accounted for zero, and then we'd really be frustrated.
And there should probably be some flexibility inside your budget anyway for some monthly things that are going to pop up. I love the idea of haircuts and oil changes, and those are some of the first things when we're counseling with people and their budgets, that they'll bring a budget, and it's a really long list of things, and it's really planned out well, and it's beautiful. But they always ask, am I missing something? And I'm always looking for haircuts and oil changes. For some reason, those are always the first things that pop in my mind. And there's a lot of people that do the haircut on their own, and they probably shouldn't. And I'm talking to you. But if you're looking for some flexibility inside your budget, padding a couple of categories, or just having an extra savings category inside your budget for some of those one-off expenses that are going to pop up. I mean, that's the reason you have an emergency fund. But if you have to dip into your emergency fund, it's all about building it back up before you go on to the next step. But again, having a lot of grace for yourself and for your family, because boy, this can be quite a tenuous situation if one person goes over the budget and one person comes in under their budget, and that happens regularly, and then there's some infighting and we're no longer on the same team. Having the budgeting meetings, talking about the expenditures. If you find yourself going over in some categories, by the way, the question is, my budget isn't working. What do I do? Why is my budget not working? Part of the reason your budget isn't working is maybe some intentionality issues. Maybe there's one particular category that you keep going over in, but you don't necessarily know that. All you know is that you're over in your budget. But if you really get down to the nitty gritty, you might find that there's one category in particular that's causing you more trouble than others. Ours is food, and it's eating out, and that will blow our budget out of the water. And part of it is, like just the other night, I was so exhausted on the way home that I just picked up food for everybody, but I didn't realize that they were ordering takeout. And by the time I got to the place for the takeout, it was like $50 for 4 people. And that was a little frustrating to me. I mean, we could have done it for much less than that, but like, it happens. You get tired, you get a little overly stressed, and it just sometimes just makes you feel better that you don't have to do something that night and you go and rest. That's okay every now and then. You do what you got to do. Planning this out, being very intentional with it, and knowing that if it's the 25th of the month and you're already over in your food budget, you're not getting $50 takeout. You're probably going home and eating stuff out of the pantry. You're looking for some leftovers. Have some grace for yourself. If there's really some particular categories that you find that you're going over in, consider moving that category off paper and putting it in your wallet. And what I mean by that is cashing out that category to say, okay, we're going to spend $500 a month at this. We keep going over by $150 every month. And part of that is because we keep swiping the card. Swiping the card is easy, but that can also get you in trouble. If you cash it out, you put $500 in an envelope. Yes, I'm talking about the envelope system. It's a little remedial, but it works. It absolutely works. Having $500 in an envelope, whenever you go to spend that money, you're taking it out of the envelope, and when that envelope is empty, you're done. And you're much more aware of your spending habits. You're much more aware of the 20th and the 25th of the month, and even the 30th of the month, of how much cash is left in that envelope. This isn't a finger wag moment. This is something you should be doing. We're just trying to be helpful, looking for some additional ways to bring some flexibility to your budget, and hopefully help with the intentionality of the day-to-day.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to sum it up, hearing what you said, I think I would say your budget's not working out. You got to have grace. You have to look in the mirror and put a little intentionality to figure out, okay, I'm not mad at myself, but why? And then pull out level 2 or level 3 tools if you need them.
Act on it.
The envelope system works because it's inconvenient. And inconvenience means that you have to be intentional. It's not a long-term, you need to do this forever, but it might help jumpstart you with a little bit more awareness. Yeah,
don't quit. Don't give up on it. Budgets take a little while, especially if you're doing it for the first time. The first 30 days are incredibly difficult. It gets better. It gets better because you get better at it.
Yep.
Your intentionality is going to pay off. You're going to find yourself with excess in certain categories because you've under budgeted. Or excuse me, over budgeted. You put too much in that category, and you're going to find yourself with some excess. intentionality is going to bring a whole lot of positive stuff to the equation.
And when you do have money left over in your budget, you can give it to me so I can take my expensive dog to the vet.
Good call.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Happy budgeting.